Good day, students. Welcome to part 2 of survey research. So we're going to talk about the telephone survey now. So here you can see there are people sitting in front of a computer and they are doing telephone surveys. So they're doing computer-assisted telephone interviews. So there are several types of telephone surveys: the traditional, the computer-assisted telephone system, and then the computer administered. So computer assisted is where you still have a person sitting in front of the computer doing the interview, whereas computer administered is where the person is taken out of the loop and the computer asks the participant the questions. Okay, so the disadvantages of telephone surveys is that the research shows that you normally get lower response rates. That is because people don't want people have software on their phones these days that block unknown numbers. They hang up on calls where people want to do surveys with them. I know I do that. Another disadvantage is you get early termination because the person can hang up. Now, a telephone is more impersonal than a survey. So although some of you had people slam their door on your face during the interviews that you did on Saturday, the fact is that people are less likely to do something like that if they see you face to face than and it's much easier just to hang up your phone if you're getting irritated by the telephone survey. So that's early termination. Then you get high costs if it's geographically dispersed. So think about having to phone around in Gauteng or phoning to Cape Town and Durban as well. That obviously puts your cost up. Then you can have a limited interview length. Firstly, because the person on the other side can hang up on you at any stage. The other thing is also that the cost of the interview becomes more the longer it goes on for. Then inaccessible populations can also be a problem because especially in rural areas not everybody has a phone, so it depends on who the type of participants are that you need to take part in your survey, whether you will use a telephone survey. And then also it's difficult to have complex scales. So already some of you told me that the scale of strongly agree, disagree, and strongly disagree was difficult to administer during the in the face-to-face interviews. Now, can you imagine having to speak to similar people to what you interviewed on Saturday over the telephone and having to try and explain that scale to them? It becomes quite difficult. Right, then the last one is the survey via personal interview, and that is what you have experienced of. So you can have computer assisted personal interviewing, or you can have intercept interviewing. All right, so what we did on Saturday was intercept interviewing, whereas computer assisted personal interviewing, the person conducting the interview sits behind a computer and then interviews the participant. So the advantages of personal interviews is that you get good cooperation rates because if you face to face with a person, they're more likely to say, okay, I'll give you some of my time. The interviewer can probe and explain. So you would have found that on Saturday, if the participant did not understand the question you were asking, you rephrased the question so that it became easier for the participant to understand. You can use visual aids. And this is what we did on Saturday, is we reached illiterate participants because most of the people that you spoke to on Saturday can't read and write, but because you interviewed them and you could read the questions to them, it was possible to actually talk to them. the interviewer can pre-screen, so you can decide beforehand based on the characteristics of the person whether you want to interview them or not. Because we did intercept interviewing, we didn't do that, but think about if you wanted to interview 20 project managers in Eskom. You could beforehand ask for the CVs of those 20 project managers, or say of 50 project managers in Eskom, and then you could select the 20 project managers that you felt would give you the best answers. So say, for example, you were looking for experts, you could then say, okay, I only want to interview the project managers that have more than 10 years of experience of project management in Eskom. So that's pre-screening. And then also computer aided, what is P stand for now? Computer aided personal interviewing is also possible. The disadvantages is the high cost. You saw on Saturday that it was quite an effort to get all of you there. And on the one hand, and also, can you imagine if I had to pay each of you for the work that you did? So I'm fortunate because I could ask you to do it, because you also learn a lot about research from it. But if KYP wanted to do a survey like that, and they had to pay the people that did the interviews, you can imagine what the cost would be. You need highly trained interviewers. So, you know, you guys are BTech project management students, which means that you have a certain level of understanding, and so I could train you in a video. But if you wanted to use a lot of interviewers and you wanted people that come cheap, you probably would have used people with lower skills than what you guys have, and of course that means that it also costs more. It's time consuming, labor intensive, and then some are unwilling to invite strangers into their homes, and I'm sure that some of you found that, or I know that some of you found that on Saturday. And then also interviewer bias is possible. So you as the interviewer, if you have a certain view, you can bias the outcome of the interview. And I hope that you guys did not do that. But the thing is, because you are not part of KYP and you do not have a agenda in terms of KYP, the chances of you introducing bias was less, and that's why it made sense to use BTech students to gather the data. Right, here are just some key terms that are used in survey research that you can look through and make sure that you know the meanings of them, and the descriptions are in the textbook. Okay, thank you very much for listening. That is the end of the lecture on survey research.